I'm Judd Myers.
I'm Scott Tipton.
Welcome to Blast Off.
Welcome to another edition of the Blast Off podcast. This will be another one of our home shows where we bring you Comics 101 and retails. Before we get going, though, we'd just like to mention, if you've been enjoying the show, and we certainly hope you have, we'd like to ask you to reach out and subscribe to the show or review us, give us that 5 stars on iTunes, help us get the word out. The more people like the show, the more the algorithms know we're here, and the more people will come find us, which is all good. This week in Comics 101, we'll be finishing up our two-parter about DC's long and somewhat confusing history of parallel Earths with And Then There Was One. And then over in retails, Judd will be telling us about how those very same DC heroes, if not saved a life, certainly changed it for the better with Gods and Comics. Hope you enjoy it.
The history of comic books, the characters you love, and the people who created them. This is Scott Tipton's Comics 101.
For those who came in late. If you missed last week's Comics 101, it's probably a good idea to go back and catch up before diving into this week's concluding installment. For those of you who can't be talked into it, here's the Cliff Notes version. In an effort to explain why some of their coexisting characters had been around for decades, while others were brand new, DC Comics editors and writers created the concept of the DC Multiverse, in which it was revealed that the original DC characters from the 1940s lived on a parallel Earth, separated by a different vibrational frequency. This allowed the Justice Society of the 1940s, with a middle-aged Superman, Batman, Flash, etc., to meet up with the then current and youthful Justice League of the 1960s, by traversing from Earth 2 to Earth 1 or vice versa. This simple and elegant concept was then endlessly muddied up by the introduction of numerous additional parallel Earths, due to either creative whimsy or the need to introduce new groups of characters acquired from other defunct comic book publishers. By the 1980s, editorial and fan opinion on the device was split. Some felt the multiple Earths were far too confusing and served as obstacle to the new reader, while others felt the concept unique and lots of fun if handled correctly, and that it encouraged new readers to learn more about DC's universe. By 1985, it was time for someone to break the tie. Enter DC writer-editor Marv Wolfman and DC Comics publisher Jenette Kahn. In the early 1980s, Len Wein and Marv Wolfman were two of the hottest writers-editors in comics. Longtime fans turned professionals, Wein and Wolfman had both had stints in the editor-in-chief position at Marvel Comics, as well as turning in extremely popular, high-profile stints as writers. Wolfman had written just about every comic Marvel had put out, including a notable run on Tomb of Dracula with Gene Colan, while Wein had made a name for himself on Amazing Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, not to mention co-creating the new X-Men and Wolverine. Eventually, both found themselves at DC Comics, where Wein had a lengthy and well-regarded run on Justice League of America, among others, and Wolfman created the new Teen Titans with artist George Perez, a critical and commercial smash hit. Wein and Wolfman were of the belief that the parallel Earths of the DC universe were far too complex and confusing to the common reader, and came to DC's publisher Jenette Kahn with a bold proposal, a 12-issue miniseries, unheard of at the time, that would involve all of DC's characters, past, present, and future, in a mammoth, cataclysmic adventure that would result in a single, elegant, consistent DC universe. Much to their surprise, Kahn approved the idea, and set them off to begin the research for what would be the single most ambitious project in DC's publishing history. With both Wein and Wolfman working full-time as writer-editors, the bulk of the research fell to Peter Sanderson, a comics fan historian who over the course of 3 years or so read every comic National DC ever produced, taking extensive notes. The research took so long that the miniseries was postponed, eventually scheduled for 1985, which just happened to be DC's 50th anniversary. When Wolfman nervously presented his first synopsis of the series to Kahn, he feared he may have been too outrageous, asking for changes that were too radical. To his surprise, Kahn returned the synopsis, asking Wolfman to take another crack at it and be even bolder, to really shake things up. Wolfman delivered. When Marv Wolfman and George Perez's first issue of Crisis on Infinite Earths appeared in April 1985, With Len Wein serving as consulting editor, DC fans were immediately put on notice. Things would not be the same after this. Within the first 10 pages, Earth 3 and its crime syndicate were dead and gone, wiped from existence by an unrelenting wall of antimatter that was methodically eliminating parallel universe after parallel universe. In a nice bit of poetic irony, Earth 3's only superhero, Lex Luthor, managed to save his son Alexander by sending him off in a vibratory capsule to Earth 1, in a sweet little echo of the original Superman origin that had started it all. Readers were introduced to the Monitor, a mysterious benefactor who plucked select heroes and villains from various Earths and time periods in an effort to halt the ever-encroaching void. By the series' halfway point, all the parallel universes and their corresponding Earths had been destroyed except for 5. Earth 1, the home of the Justice League. Earth 2, birthplace of the Justice Society. Earth X, residence of Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters, those former Quality Comics characters. Earth S, home of Captain Marvel and the Marvel family, previously published by Fawcett Comics. And Earth 4, home to Blue Beetle, Captain Atom, and the other characters purchased from Charlton Comics. These 5 had been saved from destruction thanks to the mortal sacrifice of the Monitor, who allowed his own murder so that the energies released by his death could create a safe zone in which the universes could reside. In keeping with the series' theme of duplicates and parallels, the mastermind behind the destruction of countless parallel universes was revealed to be the Anti-Monitor, the Monitor's evil counterpart bent on destroying all life and expanding his own antimatter universe. It's not easy to create a new villain and invest him with enough menace and malice to have readers really buy into him as the worst villain in all creation. Wolfman and Perez pulled it off, though, and in several startling ways. In the first few issues of Crisis, there are big doings afoot, and with the battles come casualties. The aforementioned crime syndicate is killed, as are a handful of other relatively minor DC characters. Old West hero Nighthawk, Legion of Superheroes member Kid Psycho, World War II combat heroes The Losers, a few others. Enough to get across the gravity of the situation, but nothing to really make you sit up and take notice. That is, not until Crisis number 7. In order to stop the 5 remaining Earths from merging together and ultimately destroying each other, a contingent of superheroes from all 5 Earths traversed to the antimatter universe of the Anti-Monitor to stop him once and for all. Once there, they discover that their powers work differently there, and some are considerably weaker. When Superman and the Anti-Monitor meet in personal combat, the no longer invulnerable Superman is swiftly taken down, and Superman's life is only saved thanks to the arrival of his cousin Kara, aka Supergirl, who engages the Anti-Monitor long enough for his machinery to be destroyed, thereby saving the 5 universes, but not without a cost. In a moment unexpected by anyone reading comics at the time, and remember, there were no previews catalog and no internet back then, so you only knew what would happen when you picked the book up off the rack. Supergirl, a mainstay of DC Comics for over 30 years, was dead. I remember turning page after page at the end of this issue, waiting for the catch, the twist, the way out. It never came. Just as readers were recovering from the loss of Kara, Crisis number 8 upped the stakes again. This time, it was Barry Allen, the modern Flash, who would pay the ultimate price to save the Earths from destruction. As the only being who could travel from Earth to Earth freely, Flash had been held prisoner by the Anti-Monitor to ensure he wouldn't interfere. Breaking free, Flash discovered the Anti-Monitor's fallback plan, an antimatter cannon capable of destroying the 5 remaining Earths. To destroy the cannon, Flash raced around the cannon's antimatter power source at super speed, forcing its energies inward and causing his very body to deteriorate. The cannon was destroyed, and Barry Allen was no more. This was getting serious. 2 major characters gone in 2 months. Little did we know that Wolfman was just getting warmed up. By series end, heroes and villains pull together, and the Anti-Monitor is forced back once more to the dawn of time, but with some distressing results. After the battle's climax, the superheroes find themselves home on Earth, but it's a changed, unified, single Earth. In this newly revised universe, there is only one Superman, one Batman. The Justice Society is remembered as being the precursor to the current Justice League. According to the New Earth's history, the Freedom Fighters had always lived on the same Earth as Captain Marvel and the Blue Beetle. Unfortunately, this left some surviving characters like the Earth 2 Superman, Robin, and Huntress, daughter of the Earth 2 Batman and Catwoman, as non-people, lost in a world that never knew them. By series end, they'd all be casualties, not only forgotten, but gone as well. Before the Earth's heroes could fully take in their reborn universe, the Anti-Monitor played his final gambit. He plucked the Earth itself from its orbit and transplanted it into his antimatter universe, there to more easily destroy it and clear the way for the destruction of all life. Again, the losses are heavy. Characters such as the Dove, the original Earth 2 Green Arrow, Clayface, the Earth 2 Robin and Huntress all sacrificed their lives to save the innocent. Through the concerted efforts of the newly united Earth superheroes, the Anti-Monitor is finally destroyed, with the final blow coming from the original Superman of Earth 2, who elects to remain behind to make certain that Earth is able to safely return to its own universe. So, I hear you ask, after that, the DC universe was neat and orderly, and everything worked great, right? Well, you'd think so. But in reality, not so much. The idea was supposed to be that, post-Crisis, the DC universe would be a simpler place, since every character now indisputably lived in the same universe. Instead, for some reason, the various DC editors, for reasons that to this day elude me, interpreted the reborn DC universe as, whatever I say goes, and the continuity suffered more than it ever did with multiple Earths. Let's take a look at how. Not long after Crisis, Superman's entire history was reconceived by John Byrne in the Man of Steel miniseries. Among the arbitrary decisions made, Clark Kent's adoptive parents now had never died. Okay, fine. No harm done there. Superman was now the only native of Krypton to survive its destruction, meaning not only was Supergirl dead, but according to the new post-Crisis continuity, she'd never existed at all. Say goodbye to Krypto the Superdog as well. Luthor was now a billionaire mogul instead of an evil genius, and it was decreed that Clark Kent had never been Superboy, meaning that the Legion of Superheroes, a futuristic team of teenage supertypes whose entire origin was based on Superboy, would be plunged into a nightmare of rewrite after rewrite, from which the series to this day has never recovered. Batman got off easier when it comes to the rebooting. The biggest revamp involved Batman's second young partner, the new Robin, Jason Todd. Whereas before Jason was a nice enough kid trying to live up to the shadow of his predecessor Dick Grayson, the redesigned Jason Todd was an unlikable, barely reformed juvenile delinquent whose poor attitude and surly nature led to one of the low points of DC history, an ill-advised call-in promotion that let readers decide whether or not Joker would murder Robin. And the new Robin was such an arrogant little punk that it was no surprise at all when readers voted to let Joker beat him with a crowbar and blow him straight to hell. And if you thought those were extreme, check out Wonder Woman. It was decided that Wonder Woman had never existed until the first issue of her new series, which meant that any comic book you ever read that had Wonder Woman in it never really happened. That's charming. Also, Wonder Woman's secret identity of Diana Prince was summarily abandoned. And the worst decision of all, for reasons that were never explained, it was declared that Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman had absolutely never been members of the Justice League. Removing the big three from the Justice Society wasn't really that big a problem. In the scheme of things, they weren't really pivotal characters. But nearly every issue of the Justice League had featured Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And here was DC Comics telling us that all those stories never happened. Or at least never happened the way they were originally told. It was infuriating. Much of the appeal of the JLA comes from the big guns of the DC Universe teamed up. Take away 3 of the 7, and the chemistry is definitely altered for the worse, as DC would discover. And it wasn't just the major characters who caused problems. When Hawkman was introduced, he too was given the "today is his first day on Earth" treatment like Wonder Woman, which also played havoc with some 25 years worth of Justice League comics. Had any of these decisions resulted in better comics overall, it wouldn't have been so bad, but that wasn't the case. As good as many of these comics were, they wouldn't have suffered any by retaining that link back to the Justice League. I certainly have no evidence of this, but from this reader's perspective, it felt like nothing more than egotism on the parts of the creators, as if they all felt their characters were too important to be tied to the rest of the DC universe. So, was it all worth it? Hard to say. In terms of what it was supposed to achieve, it's a tough call. While things seemed easier to understand without multiple Earths, the piecemeal plugging of the holes in continuity went on for years, and continues to this day. However, as an artistic enterprise in itself, Crisis on Infinite Earths was an unqualified success. The first of the company-spanning maxi-series in comics, Crisis set a standard that hasn't really been met since. Every month, the series crossed over into numerous other DC series, Whether in full plot lines that took off directly from the pages of Crisis, or just the crimson skies above that signaled the Anti-Monitor's invasion, and which could be seen in almost every DC book for the 12 months of Crisis' publication. George Perez's finely detailed and expressive art conveyed both the grand scope of a series that literally had a cast of thousands, and the gentler nuance of a Superman in mourning. Marv Wolfman's plot keeps the reader on the edge of his seat for 12 months straight, no easy task, while his characterizations and dialogue are dead on accurate. This series is at times funny, exciting, breathtaking, moody, and heartbreaking. Crisis on Infinite Earths is available collected in trade paperback, and I highly recommend it.
So, as a man who likes to get helmets designed and built for him, like Ant-Man and, all these different kinds of extraordinary things, what are your favorite type of statues to have in your collection?
First off, I think it was Guillermo del Toro who said that the whole point of being a 40-year-old man is being able to indulge all the wishes you had when you were 7. So I will happily defend my Ant-Man helmet, which was spectacular. Recently seen on Mark Wade's Twitter and on Mark Wade's skull, in case you're paying attention out there.
Maybe we'll put a picture on the side of that.
I think we should.
Yeah, you should come and see.
But there's something to the notion of statuary for what we do, pop culture stuff. The phrase you often use is power totem.
Yeah.
And because there's so much good stuff out there with comic book and movie and pop culture statues and prop replicas and like that. And I think there is for me personally, there's too much of it to get every single thing I think is cool. But if there's something in it where it's a character that speaks to me, a character that like means a lot to me, and then I can just walk in and I see that on the shelf, just, makes me happy.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you'll find that most of the best stuff these days, still after decades of there being companies coming and going, the best stuff comes out through Sideshow.
I would agree with that. Right now, they're at the top of their game. And we also like large statues.
Yes.
I try to get as close to life size as we possibly can. And you'll see some of those when you come into the shop. But I think Sideshow, I was probably one of the first retailers, we're talking about like 14, 15 years ago, in Los Angeles that was a licensed Sideshow dealer. They had just started reaching out to retailers, and we had like a year contract or something on them. And now they're very exclusive. Like there are a lot of retail stores that don't have accounts with them, but we are an authorized dealer. So, and there are quite a few that you can't walk into their store. It's only, resale. Basically, you can pre-order through us. You can get things in advance, like sometimes a year in advance. You order this Christmas for next Christmas, then you know that it's reserved and you pick it up at the store and you don't pay the shipping cost. And in many cases, you'll find that we'll offer special incentives and discounts and things for pre-orders. So when you go to these conventions and you see these amazing pieces and Sideshow says, oh yeah, they're already sold out. Well, that's not necessarily true, because you can still go through your authorized dealer and reserve one because they've ordered a few. I really enjoy doing that and having things in the store where people see and say, oh my God, this is amazing. And being able to say, did you see the Wolverine Hulk that they're coming out with 8 months from now? But have a look, and people really respond to it. So I think in this way, it's not so much having statuary, it's having partnerships with good companies that come out with quality material and representing that on the showroom floor of our shop. But I always love putting up an extraordinary piece that everybody fawns over. And then they come in the following week and there's a big empty space. And they go, where is it? And I go, in somebody else's house. And having a place for a new power totem. I think we're very picky. I think we're, selective about what we buy and sell and what power totems we promote to people. But the most important thing is if there's something that people want that's of quality in statuary or even high-end action figure like Hot Toys and things like that, they can get it through us. We're a source for them.
Not all great stories happen in the pages of a comic book. Some of them happen in a store. This is Judd Meyer's Retails.
Since we first opened our shop, we've operated with strict posted hours. We open when we say we'll open, and we close on time so we can get home to our families and have a good quality of life. Of course, the first couple of years I played fast and loose with those rules. Kind of have to when you're just starting out. Every sale counts, and you never know when someone might walk through the door and help pay for the hard work you and your employees did that day. Late one night, I lost myself in my work. Think it's easy to lose track of time while you're in your basement or your garage sorting and tidying your collection? Oh, imagine a full sales floor with a myriad of collectibles that change on a daily basis. You shift and clean and count, and then you get to do it all over again. It was well past closing time, and I just kept the music going and made a night of it. The door opened, and in came a young woman. Jeans, t-shirt, altogether plain. After the hello and can I help you and just browsing, she set out to wander through the shop and test the waters. Customers come in a myriad of forms, and after doing it a while, it becomes easy to tell which people are used to the comic book store atmosphere and which are the newbies. Obviously curious, but a little hesitant and embarrassed to find themselves in a store made up of childlike product. I watched her pick up a book, put it down, pick up another, put it down. She looked frustrated, off balance. I decided to approach her to ask again if she was sure I couldn't help her find anything. All it took was a, "You look a bit serious. What's up?" And the information spilled out of her. "Well, I'm a community college student," she said. "I guess I'm struggling a bit. I've tried lots of different types of media to help me find inspiration, but so far I haven't had any luck. I was just walking by and saw the graphic novels sign, and I thought maybe there was something interesting in here. When it comes to new customers who are just being introduced to our form of pop culture, I like to start by finding out what the novels are that they read, what movies they watch, what music they listen to. You get to know someone fast by their taste in other pop culture forms and can match their graphic novel recommendations accordingly. So she had good taste in music, novels, art. There was something else in her voice that obviously hid a deeper emotional struggle. As I've said before, good comic book retailers are like bartenders. We're interested to know about the finer details of customers' lives and provide a safe forum for whatever they want to discuss. What comes into a comic store stays in a comic store. I'm failing my sociology and mythology course. I've been hoping to improve on the mess I made in high school, but it looks like I'm doomed to repeat the cycle. I'm supposed to write a sort of thesis on a piece of literature that touches on mythology and how its themes tie into our society's history. I want to find something that no one else is going to pick, something outside the box, something different. "Of course," I said, "you've come to the right place." I took her around the store, recommending this and that. She was uncomfortable with superheroes, so I tried to stick with the indie titles that focused on the serious stuff, something a professor might not disregard. I knew she was in for a tough climb, since many teachers still don't take graphic novels seriously as a valid form of literature. Nothing I threw her way seemed to meet her criteria, so I just gave up. Sometimes it isn't about the book. It's about the person. She didn't just want to buy a book. She wanted to talk about it, to work it out. She wasn't an altogether confident person. She didn't do well in school and found it hard to focus and stay interested. She had no family in California and was trying to create a life and a community of her own, and she was thinking about quitting school. She was studying psychology, and sociology was a minor course she needed to complete. Funny thing was, she was more interested in how people thought about the world than how they thought about themselves. I made light of it all and asked her, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" "I don't know exactly. I just know I want to help people. There's so much neglect and injustice in the world, and I want to be someone who actually does something about it." "So basically, you want to be a superhero," I said. For the first time, she laughed, and I could see a glimmer of hope left in there. "If you're interested in helping people and finding out why others aren't, why are you majoring in psychology and not sociology?" She had no answer. She just knew she was unhappy in school and that she was halfway through her semester and that she was seriously thinking of quitting and finding some other path to go down. "Listen, I know you're not interested in superheroes, but I think I've got just the thing for you." I brought her over to the modern classics section of the store, reached up and handed her a copy of Kingdom Come. "The art is going to knock you off your feet, but the writing is what'll grab you. It has mythological themes. Each character represents an archetype of gods and icons we've found in the stories throughout history. The Flash isn't just the Flash, he's Mercury. Superman isn't just Superman, he's Hercules and Apollo. And Shazam, well, he's all of them rolled into one. We talked about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. We talked about the Greeks and the Romans. We talked about how people have always made choices in their lives. Some choose to be heroes, some choose to be villains, and all stories, from the Bible to the latest Stephen King novel, play on those themes. After a while, she asked me, "Hey, when do you close?" I answered, 2 hours ago. Needless to say, she thanked me for the long conversation, bought Kingdom Come, and went out into the night. 2 years later, I was again working late, lost in the music and restocking the shelves. A young woman walked in. The usual hello and let me know if I can help you find anything. She came directly toward me. She was stunning and uninhibited. Elaborate tattoos ran down both arms. Exotic jewelry adorned her neck. "You don't remember me, do you?" she said. And then it came back to me. The insecure young woman, tortured by her indecision, unsure of what the future held for her. "Sure I do," I said. "Heroes, villains, Joseph Campbell. How'd it all go?" She told me how inspired she was by Kingdom Come, how it renewed her faith in alternative forms of literature, how she swam upstream and wrote her thesis on it, how her teacher wasn't exactly encouraging, but after her thesis was complete, gave her an A, how she finished her semester and changed her major, how she just graduated last week. "Congratulations," I said. "What now?" "I leave for Berkeley in the morning. I'm continuing my studies and looking to get my degree up there." "What's your major?" I asked. And this transformed young woman said, "Human rights and social injustice. My plan is to get my degree and move to Africa, maybe try to help people outside of America." Obviously, she'd chosen to be a hero. I was taking inventory of my life over the past couple of years and decided I need to come in here and say thank you. The night I came in here, I was planning on quitting school the next day. You told me to hold off. You told me to finish the semester and see how I felt after. You told me that school doesn't teach you about whatever your major happens to be. It teaches you who you want to be as a person. "Did I?" I said. "From what I recall, all I did was sell you a copy of Kingdom Come." We laughed and made a few jokes. She said she had to go. Lots of packing to do. "Good luck," I told her, knowing she probably didn't need it. She said, "Hey, maybe I could drop you a line someday. Let you know how I'm doing and where my life takes me." "I'd sure like that," I said. And she walked out to rejoin her life in progress. So far, I haven't heard from her. But whether I receive a letter someday or not, I'm pretty confident she's out there somewhere, not just doing well, doing good. Now, I didn't really change this girl's life. I didn't inspire her to be a hero. If you have that trait in you, it's bound to come out sooner or later. She just needed a little nudge. And I suspect that the content of what Mark Waid and Alex Ross produced did more for her than the guy who owns a local comic book shop. But it sure meant a hell of a lot to me. And for $14.99, that sale remains one of the most important that's ever run through my register. The Blast Off podcast is produced by The Colonel, Jeff Fox, Scott Tipton, and me. Original music is composed and performed by Derek Anthony Gray. You can find more of his musical compositions on his website, derekanthonygray.com.
For more information about anything you've heard us talk about today, check us out online at blastoffcomics.com. We have an active Facebook presence, so check us out over there on Facebook. And you can reach us on Twitter at blastoffcomics or on Instagram.
Or you can come by our retail location in North Hollywood in the heart of the Arts District, 5118 Lankershim Boulevard in North Hollywood, just 2 blocks south of Magnolia. See you soon.